Okay. Well, welcome everyone. This is going to be a review of LinkedIn and how we can effectively use it for our job search, for our internship search, and how to create an effective profile. So I really want to divide this presentation up so the whole thing is not just a bunch of PowerPoint slides. So we will go through some slides initially, and then we're going to go live on LinkedIn. So let's start in here. Let's bear with me for 1 second. So why should we use LinkedIn? Well, I'm sure you've heard this over and over again in some of your classes, but 70 to 80% of jobs are found through networking, and LinkedIn is the largest professional network in the world. So we will go more into that. So how many people are on LinkedIn? Around 850 million people. Okay, so that's a lot of potential connections. One question that I get when people are coming into the office and looking for an internship or a job, and they want to know kind of the most effective strategy. One thing that comes up a lot is I ask them, who are you networking with at the company, in order to get your foot in the door? So are you flying on handshake and then just kind of crossing your fingers and hope you hear something, or are you taking more of a two-pronged approach where you're applying on handshake and then also reaching out to people at the company you find through LinkedIn in order to kind of help get that foot in the door? Okay. So let's see here. Just want to make sure nobody's waiting in the waiting room. So why? As I mentioned, this is the world's largest professional network. You are way more likely to get a job via networking. In fact, at least 2 of my last 5 jobs have been offers I received by networking through LinkedIn. Connects you to contacts at companies, which we briefly mentioned, and also George Mason grads. And we're going to go live on LinkedIn and show you how to find those fellow grads. There are 30 million companies listed, 20 million open job listings, and 100 million job applications submitted each month. Okay. Also, more than 95% of recruiters use LinkedIn regularly, and we will talk about the algorithm that is used by recruiters on LinkedIn to try and maximize your profile so you pop up on those recruiter searches. Okay. So one of the things that we should do is we should always customize our URL. It's very easy. I will show you how to do that when we go live on LinkedIn. But you can see that first bullet point, that is what we are generally assigned when we set up a LinkedIn account. It has sort of that, mess, I guess, after it, where it's just a series of letters and numbers. And so you can actually customize that so that it's just your name. And of course, if you have a super common name, you might have to throw in a dash or a middle initial there. But one of the things we want to do, and one of the reasons we would do that, is because you can put it on networking cards if you create your own business cards for job searching, but also you can put that at the top of your resume. And the reason you would have it at the top of your resume is that so employers can go to your LinkedIn profile and learn more about you. One of the things and the mistakes actually that my husband made was he created a LinkedIn account and he put his job titles with no information underneath it, none of his accomplishments or anything like that, and then had it on his resume, which again, as an employer, now I have went to your LinkedIn profile and learned less about you, right? And I want to go to your LinkedIn profile to learn more about you. For students who have those one-page resumes, what couldn't you fit on that resume, right? So our profile is a wonderful opportunity to talk about our interests and maybe activities that we've held. What are those pieces of information that, in addition to what's on our resume, what couldn't you fit on there? Okay. So this is how you do it from a mobile device. It is very different than how you would do it on a laptop, which is what I'm going to show you. So if you want to take a picture of this screen, and also we are recording this, so you can always go back as well. But that would be how you did it on the LinkedIn mobile app. And professional headshots. Okay, so why should we get a nice headshot taken? Because you are 21 times more likely to have your profile viewed by having a really nice headshot. And you can see there, we don't want the selfie. I love the solo cup in the background there. We don't want that, right? We want a nice close up. You're 9 times more likely to get connection requests, 36 times more likely to get messages. If you don't know it already, we do headshots at the School of Business at both offices in Fairfax and Arlington. So we have one left scheduled for this semester, which will be December 6th, 1 to 7. You do not need an appointment. You can simply pop into the office and looking nice, of course, with your professional wear on there, and we'll take your picture and send it to you. Also, there is an opportunity, and we'll go into this when we go live, but there's some really nice background photos. You shouldn't really keep it as your, kind of standard template that you're assigned when you get that LinkedIn profile, because it's just a missed opportunity to kind of show make your profile more interesting and show some creativity. Canva is always a great site to look, but you can also just search LinkedIn banners. You can create your own word cloud, which is what I ended up doing. So we will take a look at that in a little bit. So your headline is what appears right after your name. And what's nice about the headline is you get to make it whatever you want. It does not have to be your most recent job. It is not something that's pre-populated like your education and your employer where you can't really change it. So one of the things that I see a lot of is when students come in, their headline is student at George Mason University. And I can tell you from a recruiting standpoint, never have I ever seen a recruiter looking to fill a job called student at George Mason University. So we want to use our headline as an opportunity to talk about what we are looking for. Okay. So maybe it could be job titles. That is one thing we're going to be emphasizing a lot in this training. We want to incorporate key words from job announcements that we're searching. So again, it could be auditor, financial analyst, budgeting specialist. You could even say accounting students seeking positions in auditing, finance, and budget management. So there's a couple different ways to go about it. But again, we want to kind of avoid that student at George Mason University headline, because that's not helpful to recruiters in telling me what you're looking for. Okay. And of course, you can think one up here. Next, what I see people missing a lot on their profile is the About section. So the About section is basically like a professional summary you might see at the top of a resume, combined with a cover letter, combined with an elevator pitch. You meet somebody at a career fair, and how would you introduce yourself to them? On the LinkedIn profile, we get to use first person. So unlike on a resume where we would never say I, me, my, any of that kind of stuff, we do get to do that on LinkedIn. And I would avoid doing third person. I have seen that where I would say, Kelly is an information system, or Kelly from a young age, Kelly has dabbled in anything tech, from building computers, right? It's weird to refer to yourself in the third person, so don't do that. You can see an example here. Information systems are my passion. From a young age, I've dabbled in anything tech, from building computers to designing web applications. My time as a systems engineer intern helped me hone my ability to design and implement network infrastructure and software applications. So here I'm talking about what are my proficiencies? What am I interested in? The employer can clearly see kind of what my skill set is and where I aim to be. Okay, so that's the About section. I even have a one-liner you'll see when we go live on LinkedIn, look at profiles. We have a one-liner underneath that just talks about it's like education, or maybe some relevant coursework. You can always sneak that in there as well. Okay. So again, we talked about how would you introduce yourself to that employer, and how is this different from how is your introduction to an employer different different from your About section on LinkedIn? How would it be the same? We want to research job postings and incorporate those keywords. Again, this all comes back to the algorithm that recruiters are using. So you want to throw those keywords for jobs that you're interested in both your headline. You want to do it in your About section. You want to do it in your experience section. You want to do it in the skills section. That will help you and increase your chances of popping up in those recruiting searches. Okay. Other things we can do here. let's see here, we can tie in your experience, whether it is paid, unpaid, whether it's schoolwork, you can throw that in there, because for a lot of us, maybe our schoolwork is the most applicable background that we have for the position that we're going for. We don't have maybe a ton of paid experience in the field, but you know how to do a lot of that stuff from your education and coursework. So you can throw that in there as well. So what we don't want to do on the experience section, we don't want to have just our, job duties. We want to list accomplishment statements, just like we do on our resume. So we're going to give information about job history. Generally our resume is tailored towards a specific job and company. Our LinkedIn profile might want to be a little more general. Maybe you're going for 3 different jobs that are, somewhat related, but not really. So we want to cast a wide net. So we will make sure that we are talking about a wide range of skill set that can be applicable to all of those things. Okay. And as I mentioned before, this does not have to be paid experience. Like your resume, like we talked about, use your accomplishment statements, not job duty statements. We're going to go into what that looks like in a second here. And again, how can you relate an unrelated job? So maybe you had a job as, let's say, a waitress, and now you are going for an accounting internship. How does that relate? Well, you have to be able to relate to people. You have to have attention to detail, maybe working in a fast-paced environment. So there are some keywords, and I'm going to show you a really cool new tool that LinkedIn has that will show you some keywords that you can include on your profile that relate to the field you're interested in. Okay. So when we talk about our accomplishment statements versus job duty statements. So again, going back to waitressing, would we say waited on tables and served food? Or would we say utilize strong communication skills, excellent order recall, and multitasking while serving 300 plus people a day, achieving a 99% guest satisfaction score, right? So these are accomplishment statements. And this person has worked in 3 skills just in that same sentence: communication, order recall, multitasking. They've thrown in some beautiful quantifiers there. So they're serving 300 people a day and still achieving a 99% guest satisfaction score. So that is what we want our accomplishment statements to look like on our LinkedIn profile. And we can add coursework and projects, as I mentioned before. You can put in skills. You can have up to 50 skills. And one thing that I point out when I'm looking with students at their profile and they have 7 skills listed in the skills section, that maxes out at 50. And I say, there's no way you only have 7 skills. So we want to make sure we are maxing those out as much as possible so that we increase our chances of being popped up on a recruiter search. And part of that algorithm, you can actually reorder the skills, which I will show you. There's a new thing. I know that some of you have probably seen the endorsement section on the skills. From a recruiter standpoint, the endorsements don't matter. Okay, so endorsements are basically, let's say my cousin endorsed me for resume writing because they know that I'm a resume writer. Well, that doesn't say that I'm really good at the job. I've never written a resume for my cousin. That doesn't really tell anybody any information other than they're verifying, yep, I believe that she offers this. So that's why endorsements don't have quite as much meaning as much as like a recommendation, which we'll go into in a minute. But LinkedIn did add a skill assessment section. So you can go into the skills, take an assessment, which proves to the employer that you have that skill, that you scored high. And if you score low, it's not going to post. Okay. So it's only if you get a certain percentage or higher that it'll actually kind of show a little badge type thing next to that skill. Okay. So we also can use the job descriptions to figure out which skills we want to add. And you guys, as George Mason students, have free access to LinkedIn Learning, which goes over pretty much any topic you can think of, whether it is, how do I do a video interview? Maybe I've gotten called by CGI or some place to, interview, and it's going to be a video and I've never done that before and I want to know how to prepare. Well, you can actually look that up on LinkedIn Learning, and it'll have a ton of videos that will help you prepare for that. And of course, you can always meet with us in the office to practice as well. But if let's say you're job searching and there's a skill that's required in that job announcement that you don't have a lot of familiarity with, this is a really good way to kind of upskill yourself and look for what is that. Maybe it's looking for advanced Excel, right? And we have some sort of basic Excel skills, but we need to brush that up. So we can find advanced Excel training and all kinds of things. So emotional intelligence, interviewing, resume writing, common answers to interview questions, everything that you can kind of imagine. So on the right, there is a sample of just some of the courses that pop up there. So take advantage of that free LinkedIn Learning you guys get. Usually you don't get that unless you have a premium account, which is like $40 a month. So that is a nice feature. Now, as I mentioned before, endorsements don't really matter, but recommendations do. So we want to, back in the day, we kind of had an opportunity when we were applying for jobs to submit letters of recommendation with our application. And we don't really get that opportunity anymore. So how we can work around that is we can have people that we're connected to on LinkedIn write recommendations right on our profile. And then you'll have customized your LinkedIn URL and you'll have that at the top of your resume. And then when the employer pulls up your resume, sees your LinkedIn profile there, pulls up your LinkedIn, they can see you kind of snuck these letters of recommendation in front of the employer. So that can be one little tidbit that will help set you apart from the competition. I recommend getting recommendations from people you've been in class with, people who you've worked for, maybe people you've been in student organizations with. The goal is usually about one per previous job or class. And we can have faculty and whoever write those recommendations, okay? And you can also write recommendations for other people. All right, so as I mentioned before, when we were talking about putting our LinkedIn profile at the top of our resume, we want to make sure that that profile is 100% complete because every employer in the world can see it. So you would, just like you would not submit a resume that was half filled out, we shouldn't be advertising our LinkedIn profile if it's not complete or trying to reach out to build our network or any of that kind of stuff. Again, I keep throwing my husband under the bus, but that's exactly what he did. He created about half a profile and then tried to connect to everybody he knew. And I encouraged him not to do that. So we want to make sure that we have a very complete, nice looking profile that we're proud to share with every employer and potential network connection out there. We talked about preparing an elevator pitch. We want to research. Again, this will make more sense when we go live and you can see how do we find people at the organization that we're interested in working for? Okay, and where are the current openings? We also want to make sure that we are following the companies that we're interested in working for on LinkedIn. And the reason for that is because it's part of the algorithm used by recruiters. So if I'm looking for a financial analyst, I'm going to look for keywords in that profile, like financial analyst, maybe some advanced Excel, whatever those keywords are from that position. I'm going to look in the headline. I'm going to look in the experience section, the about section, the skills section, who is popping up, who is also in the area that I'm looking for, who has moved that toggle button and said that they are open to being contacted by recruiters. That's another thing you can do on there. And then finally, I'm going to see who is following the company that I'm hiring for. And then those are going to be the people that I reach out to first. Okay. So there's a quick example when we're talking about who we can reach out to here when we're, again, this will make a little more sense when we go live, but when you're connecting to people who you've never met before, and it's a little nerve-wracking, right? Keep in mind, most people like to help. And most people are on LinkedIn because they're interested in networking. If you don't want to talk to people or network with people, they shouldn't be on LinkedIn. Okay, so don't be afraid to reach out to people. I gave a quick example here of how you can reach out, what you can say. This might be a little lengthy, but you want to do a call to action. So instead of saying, hey, I'm a new student, do you have any internships in this, right? Or I'm going to be a recent grad and, I'm looking for this, can you help me? We want to make kind of a specific call to action. I had somebody who had tried to reach out to people on LinkedIn and was not having any success. And when I asked them what approach they were taking, they were sending this person 10 to 15 questions, and they were kind of over inundating them. So what we really want to do is we want to have a virtual coffee. We want to have a virtual 15-minute discussion with them, or in person, but can also be virtual. And we want to ask our questions there. We want to build a relationship with somebody there. We don't want to, again, over inundate them. So how we approach that is maybe we look up another George Mason grad at the company that we're interested in. We kind of make that connection. We talk about how we're looking for advice and insights, right? And how do we land that first job after graduation? And do you have 15 minutes? Here's my availability. And then you can even throw in your email address, because sometimes people don't check LinkedIn all that often, and it might be easy for them to get back to you via email. So that would be the route to go there. All right, I'm going to show you what this looks like live. This is also a relatively new tool that LinkedIn has added. This is the Alumni Tool. So you can go to George Mason, you can click on the Alumni tab and pull up all this information about where are my fellow alumni living, where are they working, what are they doing. You can see here a lot of business development people, IT, engineering, community social service. Here's what those people studied. Here's what their major was. What are they skilled at? So again, this can be another way to build your skills section. We can look at some of these to see, oh, you know what? Public speaking, I should probably add that to my skills section. Okay. That might be applicable for that job I'm going for. And then there is our information. You can see it can be often easier to give us a call or email to schedule an appointment. But if you want to schedule online, you might want to take a picture of this page. It's kind of got 10 steps on how to do that. We also offer drop-in hours. So on the left there is the Zoom link, which is also on our website. And you can see how you can just pop in without an appointment, ask a quick question. You can have your LinkedIn profile looked at, practice interview skills, all that kind of good stuff. Okay. So that is that. I'm going to look in our chat and see if anybody has any questions before we go live. Does not look like it. Okay. And if you have questions that I haven't answered, please pop them into the chat and I will take a look when we're done. So now we are going to go live to LinkedIn. Hang on one second while I pull that up. Okay, hang on one second. Back up here. Yeah, I'm happy to email this PowerPoint to participants, but actually we are recording it as well. So this should be up on our YouTube page too. If you want to recap, I understand it's kind of a ton of information to be throwing at you. Okay, so here we are live on LinkedIn. Everybody see this? Pop something yes in the chat. All right, so here is what our LinkedIn looks like. And if everybody's following the rules of LinkedIn, all of these posts should be work related. I did see somebody posting something about their nail polish color that they picked for today, which had nothing to do with anything professional. But as a general rule, we want to make our profile available to people. Unlike other forms of social media where maybe we don't want to be found by certain individuals, LinkedIn is a little different because all we have is our professional background. I would caution you, if you upload your resume to your LinkedIn profile, please, please, please take off your personal information at the top of your resume before sharing it with the whole world, okay? They don't need to know your phone number and address and all that good stuff, okay? So Here's what this looks like. We're going to pull up profile real quick so I can highlight some of those sections. Here, if you are on a laptop, we were talking about editing that URL. It's right over here on the right. If you went up to your picture and you clicked on view profile, and pull up your profile. Here's my little word cloud. And you can click here and edit your custom URL appears on the right. Okay. So that is how we get there. All right, so as I mentioned, we get to create whatever headline we want, which appears right under our name. This stuff over here gets pre-populated. So wherever we're working in our last school, don't get excited. The University of St. Thomas is not the island of St. Thomas. It is cold and it is in Minneapolis. So this is the word cloud I created using words that were relevant, keywords that are relevant to my career search. And then we go down here to the about section I mentioned earlier. So this is how we would introduce ourselves to an employer, a lot like the professional summary, as I mentioned, that goes at the top of a resume. I did do this little one-line sheeter of educational background. As I mentioned, you can also have a section. These are courses that I've taught and written, but on yours, you could certainly have relevant courses that pertain to the job you're going for. Okay. So again, up here, we want to have those job titles, not student at George Mason University. We want to work in the keywords in our about section. And here's our experience section. One thing that's kind of cool that they added a while back is if you have had more than one position at the company and you select the company when entering that, it will tie it together for you. So it doesn't look like I just job hopped after 4 months, right? And you can see here. Again, oh, and here's another thing they've added too in the last year. You can actually add in 5 skills that you have used at each of these previous jobs, again, or coursework that you're adding in there that's relevant. There's education, licenses, volunteer work. I have some of my volunteer work in 2 sections. I have some of it in volunteering, and I have some of it in my experience section because there's nothing here that says it has to be paid experience. So I want to show that consistent busyness in employment, right? Even if a lot of it was volunteer work. And then here's the skill section. Again, we talked about how the endorsements don't really mean a whole lot. But when I pull up a profile, if I pull up any of your profiles, I'm only going to see your top 3 skills until I expand to all 50 here. So the reason we might want to reorder these, right, is if a recruiter or somebody pulls up our page, what are those top 3 skills that we would want them to see? So let me just show you real quick how to reorder those. You're going to go to your edit button here, your little ellipses here, and there's something that says reorder. Okay. And then you get to put those in whatever order you want. Okay. And then here we have the recommendations section, which I talked about. You can request recommendations, you can give recommendations. Again, just something that's kind of nice to sneak in front of the employer when we put that customized URL at the top of our resume. And here's companies I'm following, top voices. Oh, wow, 138 companies. Okay. So again, that's where we want to make sure that we are following the companies that we're interested in working for, because it'll make us more prone to being contacted by that recruiter. All right. So I'm going back home here. Now, here's a couple different cool things that we can do. Let's say I want to work for who? CGI. I mentioned them earlier. So I'm just going to pop, I'm just going to pop in CGI up here in the search box. Here they are. They have 63,000 employees on LinkedIn. So I'm going to click on them because I want to be best friends with most of them. If I want a job there, but I want to narrow it down, right? I'm not going to reach out to 63,000 people. So how can I narrow this down? Let's start by who's in this area. Okay. And now I'm down to 2,600. But the people that are going to be the easiest to connect with are other George Mason grads because we have that in common. So I'm going to go to all filters right over here. And I'm going to add George Mason University. You can always, if it's not popping up here for you, you can click here. Be very careful when you type it in because School of Business pops up here. But most people tend to put just George Mason General. So we want to keep it more general one. You can do both too, of course. Now, from those 62,000 people, I have 307 who are in this area, who are also George Mason grads, who might be good people to start connecting to. Then here is a recruiter. Here's a human resources person, HR manager. So I want to work, look at this, campus recruiter. That might be a good best friend to have, right? So we want to connect with people who can help us get our foot in the door. And again, we don't necessarily approach them saying, hey, can you get me a job, right? We want to say, hey, I need advice and insights, and can you help me? Because again, most people are willing to help, all right? So we can reach out to recruiters. We can reach out to people who have the job title there that we're interested in. You can also add filters on here. So maybe you want to be a project manager. We could add that as a filter and see who popped up. That was a George Mason grad that was in the Washington area that had that role. And another reason to do this, again, we want a two-pronged approach when we're applying for jobs and for internships. We don't just want to apply on Handshake and cross our fingers and hope that they reach out to us. We want to also be proactive. We want to be reaching out to people who work at the company. We want them to be our advocate. We want them to like us so much, after that 15-minute Zoom call we had, that they are putting your resume in front of HR, in addition to having applied online, okay? The other thing to be mindful of, not just for the recruiters, but anybody, a lot of these have incentives, like hiring incentives. So if Kurt likes you, forwards your resume to HR and they hire you, of course it's in HR, he might get a $1,000 bonus, right? So I have done that for 2 people at my last company who both got employment, and it was people who reached out to me on LinkedIn. We had a quick conversation. They seemed like they were really good candidates, and I forwarded their information internally through our recruiting process as a current employee, and they got hired. Unfortunately, in those instances, they were not, I did not get a big bonus. However, those people did get hired, and because they were an internal recommendation through somebody who worked there, they were guaranteed or more likely to get that interview. So don't just reach out to the HR people in recruiting, although that is also helpful. You can reach out to anybody. So you want to be a business analyst. Here's somebody who's a business analyst there. And we went over some of that verbiage on how to reach out. There's a couple different ways you can do it. So if I wanted to become besties with Kurt, I might click connect. And then I want to add a note. Now, the tricky thing about notes, of course, is that we are limited to 300 characters. So I only get to say so much about myself. However, I have premium, and no, I did not pay for it. I got it free from a company, so I was very lucky. However, everybody generally gets free premium for a month. So as you are exploring in your job search and kind of really gonna hit the pavement, so to speak, in your job search and reach out to people, maybe that is something to explore. Get that 1 month free premium membership, because then you can message people directly, okay? Without having to do that connection and add a note to that connection, okay? So that is reasons why and how we can find people at the company to connect with. Now, if we go back here, here we are on our main page, and up here, we see jobs. Oh, the other thing I wanted to show you too, let's go back to CGI. So it'll tell me, here's some people that I'm connected to who work there. So again, this is why we want to be so broad. After we get that awesome looking profile, we want to connect to the person we worked at Dairy Queen with in the 1990s. Okay, maybe 1990s for you, but for me, that would be the 1990s, right? Because you never know who they're going to know or how they might help. And again, unlike social media, maybe I don't want to be besties with my old boss on Facebook, but I certainly want to be connected to them on LinkedIn, because they might know people who they can provide introductions for and help me get my foot in the door somewhere. You just never know. Okay. And then when you see when we went to the people who work there, and you're seeing these numbers, second, second, second. There's a first down here. Where's our campus recruiter? She was somewhere in there. Second means I know somebody who knows Kurt. Okay, and here it's telling me I have 3 mutual connections with Kurt. So if I reach out to Kurt, he doesn't get back to me. Maybe I want to reach out to Carrie and say, hey, Carrie, looks like we're both connected to Kurt. Can you provide an introduction? Here's what I'd like you to say, and kind of grease the wheels that way. Okay. All right, so when we go back to our main page, we can look at jobs. So we'll click on our jobs link up here. You can set up job alerts. So if you're looking for accounting or business analytics, we can just do a search for that and then save that. So it'll let me know when new jobs pop up in that field. But let's just do a quick search here. I want to look for a business analyst. And let's make it more specific here, not just the United States. We can also look for remote jobs this way too. And we generally want to look at jobs that were posted in the last week, because if they're months old, it means generally, I guess there's a chance that they haven't filled it, but for ones that are posted in the past week, they're more likely to be actively recruiting for and interviewing for right now. Okay. So Mantech, looking for a strategic engagements coordination analyst. You can see that some of these are business analyst titles, some of them maybe not so much, most of them are. So we want to click on there. So we go down here, and here's where we can find some keywords to include in our profile, right? But the other thing you want to do now, because I have premium, it's telling me how many people have applied and all that kind of good stuff. And here's some information about the company. Now, however, this is not all. If you click on the job title up there and open up the full page, there's kind of a cool thing in here. Now it's telling you about the job. Now here's our premium. But here's some information about the company, which of course you always research. You're going to put some of this type of information on a cover letter. You're going to be asked this in an interview. Why do you want to work here? Here they're giving you some of that information. You can also look at what they've posted on social media to see what are some cool projects that they've been doing and reference those in both the interview and your cover letter. It shows you're interested in the company, not just kind of doing a boilerplate method. But here's the cool part. If you opened up this specific job, underneath it will give you similar jobs that look like they're pretty close by geographically. So when you open that up, don't forget to utilize that, okay? The last thing I wanted to go over with you guys is that alumni tool I mentioned. So let's look up George Mason. Okay, here they are. Here's George Mason. And what we can do is click on, see this alumni tab. I showed you some screenshots of this, but here's where it's live on the site. And you can search alumni by their job title, by their company that they work for. How cool is that? And of course, you can narrow it down by year. Maybe I don't want the 1900 grads. That would be something. But we can look here and see where they're working, where are they living, right? We can go to the next page. What are they doing? Here's some business development folks. What are they skilled at? Again, here's some information I could be stealing for my skills section, for my about section. Okay. And then here's what they studied, and here's how I'm connected. So again, this would be the people. That first one is I'm directly connected to. So let's say I'm interested in business admin. I click there, and here they are. Let's click HR people. They're going to recommend them down below. Okay. Oh, so that's what we want there. That's what we're looking for. All right. And I want to show you one more page here that is a new cool feature. Let's see here. And this is called the Career Explorer. All right. So let me share this with you, and then I'll answer any questions you have. But this is super cool. All right. So here is their Career Explorer site. I'm going to pop this in the chat. Okay. So here's what's cool about this. This talks about what are some of the skills that you have that are applicable in transferring over. So if I was a food server and I wanted to become an operations coordinator, it's going to highlight for me which are the transferable skills. Now, the tricky thing that I don't super love about LinkedIn is that it doesn't just show me the whole drop down of all the skills I can select from. I have to start typing it in and it'll tell me. And there's literally hundreds and hundreds. So this can be really handy because you can go down to the bottom here. Let's see where I find this. And look at this. I can type in a job that I'm going for and it'll list, here's the skills that are commonly found in those job descriptions. So these might be some of the ones I want to work in that skills section, in that about section, in my experience section. Okay. So that's why this is kind of a really cool new tool. Again, it's called the Career Explorer. And it even tells you, skills that overlap with other fields. So I know this is a ton to throw at you. I am going to open it up to questions because I know we covered a ton of stuff here. I'm going to look at the chat and see if I missed anything. Please feel free to type in any questions you have. And if you haven't yet, please send me your G number. You can send it to me privately in the chat so that we can track our attendance here. How's everybody feeling? Overwhelmed? Just the right amount of information? Learn something new? All right, well, I am going to post in the chat our website where you can schedule an appointment. I am happy to take a peek at anyone's LinkedIn profile. Also, don't forget, as students, you guys can use jobscan.co, and I will pop that in the chat. And one of the cool things about this, you get a free account through George Mason. Let me put it in here. So that's the main site. If you searched George Mason Job Scan, you will see a link on how to sign up for that. But here's what's great about Job Scan. You can do a couple different things with it. You can post a job announcement and upload your resume, and it'll run it through like an ATS AI system and tell you what percentage you're matching up. It'll tell you, you want to be at 80% or higher in order to have gotten through the system in that red. And it'll tell you what keywords you're missing. But how that relates to this training is it also allows you to copy and paste your LinkedIn profile and compare it to jobs that you're interested in. And you can see how you're measuring up. If there's some keywords maybe you're missing that you need to throw in there, it'll help you identify those. Okay. All right. So anyway, I'm going to go back to posting that site for us. It is right here. Okay, so that's the site where you can see that Zoom link if you want to do drop-in hours. You can call, it'll have our email there to schedule an appointment. And it'll also, like I said, we can follow those directions on how to schedule an appointment through the internal system as well. Okay. All right, everybody. Well, that concludes today's training. I hope it was helpful. Please, please, please reach out if there was something that did not get touched on that you wanted answered and you just don't want to pop it in the chat. Or again, if you want to meet with one of us and go over, let's say, is this, here's the jobs that I'm interested in. Here's what my profile is looking like right now. And again, a lot of this will be very similar to what it looks like on Handshake. So there's that section at the top, very similar to the About section on LinkedIn, which talks about why are you here, right? Why are you on Handshake? What are you looking for? You can put coursework in Handshake. So it's not reinventing any wheels here, just a lot of copying and pasting. So that should help you out as well. And we're happy to look at Handshake profiles. Okay. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us.